Please welcome her with a warm round of applause. 여러분 큰 박수 부탁드립니다.
Good morning. Here's a quick video to start off with of our product, Digit, working, doing our initial use cases. Digit's a humanoid. I'll let you take a look at this. Okay, Digit was very busy there. But what you just saw, is a humanoid that's actually getting paid to work for the very first time. But it didn't start with this. We have actually been watching the industry for about 60 years. There's been about a progression of 60 years leading up to a full humanoid actually stepping in and able to do tasks that previously just humans did. It actually started with something called the Unimate for universal animation. This was the very first time any company had ever made anything that you could call robotics, and it was about 60 years ago. The arm was hydraulic, so it had liquid in it, but it was able to actually pick things up, and it was actually controlled by magnetic tape, which shows you just how long ago this was. The next one is the Rancho arm. It was finally controlled by a computer the very first time. Then came the Stanford arm. This is when the industry moved toward electric. Turns out hydraulic is pretty challenging. It can be leaky because there's a fluid in there. It's complex, it's big. So largely, the robotics industry has stepped back from hydraulic and everything's electric now. Then the shaky robot, which is kind of a cute name for the very first time these things moved. This was the first robot that would actually move along, generally tracked on the floor with a wire or a tape. The next part that came was for these robots to have a little more dexterity, and that meant putting motors into the arms through something called actuators. And they were electric, and that gave more degrees of freedom to the arm, and we started to see some hands, which you see in some of the early versions of a simple movement with a hand from one spot to another. The next was the actual pick and place. So if any of you have worked in manufacturing areas, pick and place is something that picks something up from one area and sets it down in another area, and it was run by applications. So applications started to be the programmers of these. Let's see. Next, the robots got vision. They needed to understand the surroundings that they were in so that they could navigate around things in their environment. And then we got to the automated guided vehicles. These were the first ones that were guided by laser, and that made them much more able to move around a factory more autonomously. Finally, we get to the point where we have the first trackless robots. And if you've ever been in any of these big logistics facilities, they're running all around. They're called autonomous mobile robots, or AMRs. And Amazon has really helped to proliferate these. They have over 750,000 of these things running around their factories. And that's just Amazon alone. So quite a bit has happened in the industry. But until now, you haven't really seen a full humanoid in these factories. You do still see humans. If you look here, factories are magical places of infrastructure, lots of innovation. There's conveyor belts, there's small AMR tugs, as they're called. They're moving things around. But even today, you still have these two people in the middle of it, or others, but they still rely on humans to connect these islands of automation. And turns out that's a bit of a problem. We still need people in these factories. In fact, in the US, there were over 600,000 jobs that just went unfilled. We didn't have the people to fill them in these warehouses. And that was about 8 years ago. Today, it's only gotten worse. Over 1 million jobs are unfilled. They're dirty, they're repetitive jobs, they can be a bit dangerous, they can be backbreaking, you hurt your knees. They're not attractive jobs. This number is growing largely because of all of our interest in next day delivery. When we want something delivered the next day, that really bothers this equation. So this number is accelerating. As it turns out, humanoids are the answer. Humanoids can step in and do this simplistic type of work right now that humans don't want to do. So they can take the tasks, the repetitive tasks, the monotonous tasks away from humans and free them up to do other things. Actually, we believe that humanoids are one of the great, big, disruptive technologies coming along the lines of the PC, the mobile phone, electricity, and aviation. Literally, our home lives and our work lives are going to change after this point because it's happening now. And essentially, it gives you choice. I think all of us have different ideas of what we like to do around the house. Maybe you like to do yard work, but Saturday rolls around and you want to watch a game on TV. You could send your robot out to mow the lawn. You could send your robot down the hall to do the laundry. It'll give you choice to offload things that you don't want to do in any moment. That's the vision. Today, people who run these manufacturing facilities and logistics facilities have that same choice. They're putting robots into these areas that previously they couldn't find humans. And that allows them to continue to expand their operations, to continue to grow. Distribution warehouses are where we're starting because they have those kind of jobs that people don't love much. In fact, Amazon is saying there's such a big opportunity to add these mobile manipulator solutions. That's where humanoids fall into that category, mobile manipulator solutions. But they're meant to augment the employees that they already have. A little bit of a progression of where we came from. We started with legs. We spun out of Oregon State University. And it turns out legs are pretty hard to do. They're very complex. But this was the academic research of our founders. They started with legs, and there's been a real steady progression. We added arms, a torso, and a little bit of a head, not much of a head, and lots of sensors. Then we moved on to really listening to potential customers, this was not commercial yet, and asking them, what do you need these things to do? They need to lift a certain amount of weight. They need to move in a certain way. They need to, while not be 100% a human, they need to be human-centric so they can walk in the areas that are meant for humans. So these next couple were us listening to potential customers, and eventually we got to our version 4, which we're shipping now, 2 customers, and that's the one that's stepping in and taking actual work. We've signed the first robot as a service deal for humanoids. Humanoids are stepping in at a company called GXO in Atlanta, Georgia, and they right now work inside of these red work cells. They're not safe enough yet to work outside of those work cells in the proximity of other humans. So they work inside of there, but it's taking shift work. It's working 8 hours a day in conjunction with a couple other robots, and it's moving product for GXO. Here is us on the ground at Amazon's facilities. Similar thing, we're moving from a put wall onto a conveyor belt, stepping into a task that they can't find people for, and it's gone very, very well. We've met their metrics, and it was continuous runtime for 7.5 hours with 2 robots working in conjunction. And lastly, this is a large automotive company, we haven't announced this one yet, who had a different kind of a plastic tote. You can see it's much longer, and we had to put different hands on the ends. It's more 2 fingers and 2 thumbs. We can swap out the hands or the end effectors to line up with the type of job that the robot needs to do. So about 2 years ago, in November of 2022, everything changed. AI came on to the scene. And AI is the rocket fuel for robotics. Now, we can start to give commands to Digit, our robot. We can say, go fetch the box at the other side of the room, and Digit can understand that. It can scan its environment. It can make sure it doesn't run into anything. And that has changed everything. In the top left, that was us on stage at Wall Street Journal, showing a very simple household command. We asked Digit to separate the clothes for laundry and take the whites out from the colored clothes. And so Digit did that very successfully. Digit can walk outside. It can work in a variety of areas. We show Digit in the home down in the lower right. We're not there yet. It's meant to be an enterprise product for probably the next several years before it can get into the home, largely because it needs to be much safer when it's operating around humans. So you can think of AI helping humanoids in 2 areas. There's the semantic intelligence, giving it a command and having it know what to do. And then there's the physical intelligence. Once I give it the command, the legs, the arms, they have to know how to do it. And so AI has been helping us in both. We use reinforcement learning in the legs and obviously semantic intelligence to give the commands to Digit. The real big breakthrough, though, is getting outside of the work cell. So this shows Digit and humanoids working behind these gates where humans aren't in the same area. If we can break out of that and have Digit now operating right on the floor of the manufacturer and maybe going down to the loading dock and picking something up and being in very close proximity to humans, that's called cooperative safety. And meeting that bar is the largest obstacle in the way of very broad distribution of humanoids. We're going to meet that bar. We're going to show that off the middle of next year, and we'll be in production with a cooperatively safe robot that can operate around people before the end of the following year. So we're super excited about that. Very complex, very hard to do. AI is helping us do that. Until that happens, we really are limited to work cell environments. So we want to get out of that area so these other markets can open up. The green is what we can do today, and the white is what happens after we are cooperatively safe. Then we could get into areas like the home, we can get into areas like elder care, and that's going to be literally an unlimited market out there for humanoids. So although it's been 60 years coming, we're here today, right now. We've just been honored with the front page of the Times magazine, and there is definitely more to come. So thank you very much.